welcome here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on this wonderful, wonderful day. Once again, my voice is still this way, so I appreciate your patience here today as I am trying to get over a little sinus stuff that's been going on in this wonderful world of people being sick and things going around and whatnot. So I hope you're feeling well today. I'm trying to feel a little bit better today. I have felt a little bit better by the grace of God. So thank you for being here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. Great Lakes Honda City on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. You can find them Monday through Saturday. And make sure you head over there today for new and used vehicle galore. So many different shapes and sizes of vehicles. And something for everyone. It's where I shop. It's where I get my vehicles. I put my money where my mouth is. So, Great Lakes Honda City, I want to thank you for being so good to me over the years and helping me to find awesome vehicles. I love my new Honda CR-V 2025. I love the new look of it. It's really, really nice, really cool. So, thank you for everything that you're doing over there at Great Lakes Honda City. We're happy to be here with you on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. Inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin'. We're going to start the show off with my new all-new Dolphin Dive special. This is featuring Linda LeMura of LeMoyne College. And Dr. Linda LeMura being the president of LeMoyne College, her and I sat down for an all-new Dolphin Dive on the heels of LeMoyne choosing their new leader of athletics, that being Phil Brown, the assistant VP of intercollegiate athletics and campus recreation. So we'll talk about that and the school moving forward with Linda in a conversation you won't find anywhere else. Very excited to have that here this morning during Dolphin time. And then in hour number 2, we will be joined by Jason Lucas, sports and entertainment vet, who will be joining me to speak on UCF, the return of Scott Frost, and the small world of sports that him and I know all too well. We'll get into the college football playoff, and we'll talk about the NFL playoffs coming up with my buddy, Mr. Jason Lucas. So a lot of great stuff coming up here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We appreciate you tuning in on YouTube.com and Facebook.com, both /WakeUpCallDT, and on WakeUpCallDT.podbean.com. So however you're connecting with the show up and down the East Coast, the Midwest, the West Coast, and all around the globe, we appreciate you for being here with us on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. And we will be back in just a moment with a wonderful conversation featuring the president of LeMoyne College, Dr. Linda LeMura. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you. Looking for your next ride? Look no further than Great Lakes Honda City, located on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Serving our community for decades, their new and pre-owned vast array of vehicles are available to you Monday through Saturday on site. To search from home, shop at GreatLakesHondaCity.com. Call 315-365-5576 to set up an appointment. That's 315-365-5576 for Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Great cars, great people, Great Lakes.
All right, you need to come out here and get yourself the Brooklyn Pickle. I was talking about this with one of my buddies. I was like, yo, there's no better sandwich in the state of New York than the Brooklyn Pickle. And now that I found out that they're going down to North Carolina, we are taking over your taste buds everywhere you are, wherever you're gonna be. You need to get yourself out to the Brooklyn Pickle. Pinehurst, you just realized that you found yourself the best sandwich shop that you're ever gonna have. This is a glorious moment. It's a blessing to your community. You're welcome. Brooklyn in the house, baby. Go over to the Brooklyn Pickle. You already know what it is.
You heard the man. Head to Brooklyn Pickle Pinehurst on 1788 Old Morgantown Road in Southern Pines, North Carolina. Special leadership segment here inside of the Dolphin Dive. I'm here with Dr. LeMura, the president of LeMoyne College, and always happy to have a friend here on the show. So Linda, how are you?
I'm well, good to see you. Happy New Year, my friend.
Happy New Year to you as well. It's been a process. It's been a long, arduous process, but like you said in the introduction, you feel like you found your guy.
We do. We took our time.
We went through this process, like you said, you took your time, you didn't rush at it like we see in today's collegiate climate.
Exactly.
How many did you speak with? I mean, when you look back on it, when you look at this process, was there a giant pool? Did you try to narrow it down and then take your time? Once you narrowed it down, bring it into that?
We had a pool of somewhere between 50 and 60 applicants. We whittled it down to 10, and then from that, whittled it down to 5. And then we got really serious with the top 3. And each candidate brought his or her own experiences and strengths, of course weaknesses, and we concluded that Phil had the full complement of attributes that we wanted for our next leader of athletics.
And when you look at, he had that full package, what are those pieces that really just stuck out to you? Like when you said when you went from 50 to 60, down to 10, down to 5, down to 3, what made him continue to meet the expectations? What are those things that he has?
Well, in part it was his tenacity and persistence and perseverance within the search of constantly studying and learning more about the institution. He was so profoundly prepared, which is always a really nice sign. He did, in fact, read our strategic plan, which is a little bit unusual sometimes. He combed our website and talked with people from the region. He had a real affinity for this place and its people, but first and foremost, Dan, he has an affinity for our mission. That's something that we won't compromise. He fit the bill.
In his introductory press conference here and before that, when I've spoken with him multiple times, he constantly brings up the word Jesuit. What does that mean to you? Because I know how important it is to be a Jesuit institution. You talk about the family of Jesuit institutions across the country, LeMoyne being the young one on the block. Hearing your new leader of athletics constantly bring up the Jesuit values, just what that means.
It means the world to me and to the institution writ large. It means that he understands we're different and that our values are important to sustain, maintain, and invest in our values in ways that are very tangible, obvious. We want people to know that we're different and why we are. He absolutely fell in love with the LeMoyne Way, the character formation program for our student athletes. Not all athletic directors would buy into that kind of a culture, and actually that drew him in. So the fact that he's very, very comfortable with Catholic and Jesuit, and he leads with those values in his own personal as well as professional life, is the world to all of us.
You going through this process with the team that you have, just what you can say to everyone in the background that was a part of this committee to find the right person, because it doesn't just come down to you. There's a team here at LeMoyne. There's a Finn family, as we always talk about.
Oh my goodness, I was President deepest gratitude for all the time and patience. It's essentially an endurance event. The careful check of references classes and asking questions and consultations to ensure that we're doing the absolute best job in finding the right person for our student athletes and coaches. We never once shied away from that menu of talents and abilities that we were seeking. They put their head down to the ground and they worked, without exaggeration, for months to get this certificate. So I'm deeply grateful. The entire campus, on behalf of everyone here, thank you for this amazing work.
Before I let you go, as we look to fill in his future, and now he's officially official.
That's right.
So you're a big time fan. You go out to these games and these matches and these events and these meets, and you support the student athletes, you support the coaches. Just what it means to you to have a leader for them and how that process has been, because obviously they look to you as their president. So going through this with the student athletes and the coaches, do you feel like you can look to the community here with the Finn family and say, we found someone that I trust our student athletes with, I trust our coaches with?
To that wonderful question, I would just say that the athletic program and all of its constituent groups, especially the students, I feel like now I can step away, get back to my day job, so to speak. And I know that Phil will keep me posted and we'll strategize together when it's appropriate. But he is the leader. I can't wait to learn from him and learn with him as we navigate the crazy world. So I'm very optimistic about it.
Two final points. I would be remiss if I didn't thank, and I know you did in your address with bringing Phil in, is to thank Mike Lindbergh for stepping in as the interim leader of the athletics department. He had just retired. 5 seconds before, he's going to go on a beach somewhere, and you stopped him. So just what you can say to the fact that an alum of LeMoyne dedicated himself once again to the mission, once again to the vision, and Mike truly embodied once a Dolphin, always a Dolphin.
You said it perfectly. He wanted to get back to his alma mater. He did not hesitate for a second to come and help us during the interim period. And he embraced it in a way that speaks to the service and the values of this institution. He's an amazing role model, and he showed it every day for this whole interim period.
Final point here in two parts. VP of Intercollegiate Athletics and Campus Recreation. It's a long title. It's not simply athletic director. What does that mean and how they're going to work with you? And then secondly, what are you most excited about seeing this behind us and everything that's going to be happening with campus and the events at Rec Center and everything we've already seen?
It's an amazing time to be a part of this institution. So many institutions in higher education are having a hard time. And we're going the other way. We're growing, we're investing in ways that other schools would love to be able to invest. We're hiring incredible people with great talent. It's just an exciting time to grow with this, whether it's in the people, which is first, or in the facilities, the growth there too. Collectively, we have a very positive, upbeat, exciting story to tell, and I can't wait to get out there and see it.
So VP of Intercollegiate Athletics and Campus Rec, what does that mean?
The recreation part means the clubs. We need to expand our club offerings, in part because our students are craving it. And we also don't want to send the signal that these investments that we're making are purely for the student athletes, because nothing would be further from the truth. We have amazing athletes who want to engage on the club level, but they cannot be intercollegiate athletes for whatever reason. So we're trying to address this in a holistic way. That's what we mean by the recreation.
Coming from Dr. LeMura, the president of Moyne College, here with the Jesuit way and moving us forward in the LeMoyne way. Linda, as always, thank you for all of your efforts, all of your work, and I hope you get a good night's rest.
Thank you. Happy New Year again.
Happy
Best
New Year.
wishes.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Here's a message from Renee from Bryan's Landing, located on 6523 East Seneca Turnpike in Jamesville, New York. Open Tuesdays and Wednesdays for dinner, Thursday through Saturday for lunch and dinner, and Sundays for brunch.
It's a lot like the way that my mom and dad ran their restaurant. We have put in place a lot of people that are family to us, very similar to how my dad hired people that were family to him. And then the tradition I'm carrying on is a lot of the items that are on our menu are my dad's. And he taught our chefs how to recreate his dishes. So I think that Tommy McNerney, who our executive chef is, to him it is an art. And I think that when he does create a dish, it's not just about making the food taste delicious, which is definitely our priority, but it's an art to him, and it's almost like his canvas on a plate where he just wants the colors to look great, and people love it because he takes pride in that. And Brian and I appreciate that. We want it to obviously look good and taste good. I will tell you, when we opened up, it was 6 weeks before COVID. And what was amazing was the community, our friends and family stepped up, and everybody did takeout. Everybody supported us. Our hearts were just so filled. So to Brian and I, obviously our friends come all the time, and we just have repeat customers in Jamesville, and I think people going to our previous restaurant in Green Lakes are making the trip to come to Brian's Landing to support us. And I mean, I think we have great food and a great atmosphere. So it's very, very important to us.
Head to Brian's Landing, located on 6523 East Seneca Turnpike in Jamesville, New York, where memories have become recipes that are now meals to share with you. Tuesdays and Wednesdays for dinner, Thursday through Saturday for lunch and dinner, and on Sundays for brunch. And be sure to come out for live music Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Here is a special message from Brian Bruno, owner of Servomation Refreshments Incorporated.
I grew up in the family business, had the experience of working for a national food service company with thousands of employees, and as much as I enjoyed the experience I had, there's something about, owning my own company and being able to change the things I saw wrong with the industry firsthand, which is why I moved back to my hometown in Canastota, New York, to launch Servomation. It was back in 2007. When we first started the business in 2007, really you didn't find any machines with credit card readers. There was a lack of variety in machines. You got stuck with basically whatever the vending company wanted to sell that day. There's a lot of inefficiencies in the business, and those were all things that we saw as opportunities, both from a customer level to improve and from an operating level to be more efficient. We've really been at the forefront of introducing retail technology into our space. We were doing self-checkout back in 2009 before it really became a national phenomenon. The whole point of it isn't to just improve the customer experience, it's to make it feel more like a retail environment where people don't have to be afraid of what they're buying behind glass. They don't have to be afraid of not being able to see the ingredients of the packages. It was an easy transaction from that standpoint. If we were to reinvent something, we wanted to make sure what we were making looked and felt more like a deli and not like something that you would traditionally see in a vending machine. I was tired of hearing for years the customers say the wheel of death because the vending machine would circle around with the same tuna salad in it. What we wanted to do was it really change the perception of that food. So allowing customers to touch it, allowing customers to feel the weight of it, allow customers to see the freshness of it, and also the variety of it really helps them change the perception and ultimately the value of what we bring to them. The point of differentiation you have to make is either in value or the quality. And I think on both of those fronts, Servomation has really, in large part, changed that value system for employees. So they no longer have to worry about bringing their food from home or having to leave their desk during the day and rush out to get back in time for their break to end. We're bringing something that they can count on in their break room every day, and they know it's going to be there, they know it's going to be fresh, and they don't have to worry about it being sold out or something that they don't enjoy. We've also heavily invested in flavored water machine, so you can get a glass of water with a fresh piece of fruit in it, along with bean to cup coffee machine. So there's not a day that goes by we're not surprised when we get customers that call us and say, we didn't know you could do all this. We're really lucky to have a strong group of dedicated employees. Most of our employees have been with us since inception. They're family to us, and people like doing business with people they like and trust. And I think the same thing goes for employees. In a day and an age where there's a lot of corporations that just look at an employee as a number and don't get to know them, that's just not not the way I was raised or how I like to do business. So we're a little old-fashioned. We like getting close to our employees. We like knowing how we can help them. We like knowing how we can improve their lives, adjust their schedules, whatever it may be to help improve their quality of life. And we think in the end that makes for a happier employee. We're fortunate enough to have really grown over the last several years, and from Pennsylvania to Massachusetts to Connecticut, we really do have a strong connection, even though we're not in the rooms every day with these employees. There's not one single employee that we feel like we don't know, and certainly we know they can call us at any time, and they're definitely treated as family to us. I wake up every single day really excited to surprise our customers in a good way. The one thing I can tell you is I think that every one of our employees and every one of our customers will continue to be at the forefront of every decision we make.
Find out how Servomation can help you and your business by going to servomation.com.
And a welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. If my voice sounds different, that is unfortunately because I have been under the weather here, and doesn't help that when you're traveling that I still think when you're on a plane, I wear a mask. I think that people should wear them, and especially if you're sick, because I wore a mask and there was people around me that were coughing and around other people that were coughing. And like I said, this show is not here for personal attacks, and this show is not out here to single out people. I'm using things as an example. But I was, in the last week and a half, I was around a person who was sitting one seat over from me, just coughing all over the place. Then she put a mask on after she had coughed everywhere. Then she coughed everywhere for like an hour and a half. Then she put a mask back on. So there was no point. Then there was a lady that was coughing with her mouth open all through Syracuse Airport and coughing like she was holding her baby. So I don't know if she was coughing all over her baby. And then we brought my dad out for his birthday dinner on New Year's Eve. And there was a guy in a booth that was coughing all over the place. So, none of these people were utilizing masks for the most part, except for that one woman for a very short amount of time. So if you don't feel good and you can stay home, stay home. If you have to go out, put a mask on and take the necessary precautions, because that was my concern. I was like, I'm flying all over the place. I'm run down. I'm tired. Some of that's on me because I, don't get to bed at a decent hour. And I just, being on that plane and having that person hacking all over the place, I felt bad. I wanted her to feel better. I prayed that she would feel better and that she would heal, and hopefully she has. I also prayed that she would think about other people. You got to think about other people, man. Nobody wants to get sick, but some people don't care if they get you sick. Nobody wants to get cut off in traffic, but some people will cut you off in traffic if they got to get somewhere. You know what I mean? We live in a society where nobody wants to be treated this way, but they're willing to treat other people that way if it'll help them at that moment, or if they're not even thinking about it. And I do think about it. I have to travel again. I'm covering the college football playoff, so I'm doing everything in my power. I've had to move events around and do different things because I'm thinking about people. Move this event around with this school because I care about the kids and I want to make sure they're good. I want to make sure this is good. I already went to the doctor to make sure, you want to know if something's contagious, if it's not. So, I take those precautions, and I just pray that everybody else will take those precautions, because viruses spread and colds spread and things spread because people are careless, and we need not be that way. I take precautions. I have got the Lysol wipes in the car. I got the mask on when I'm on the plane, this, that, and whatever. But, I can't control if someone's going to cough and sneeze all over the place and not protect themselves and look out for other people. I can't stop that from happening. So I just pray that people think about other people. I was on a plane last year and there was somebody right behind me that was just the whole flight. You could just hear all the stuff in their throat, all the phlegm and all that stuff. And you're just thinking to yourself, like, did they have to travel? Because if they didn't, then shame on them. And then if they did, well, what precautions did they take? Are they masked? Are they not masked? They didn't sound like they were, but, Because I do. I think about everybody. When that lady was coughing on my plane, I wasn't just thinking, oh, I don't want to get sick. I was thinking, I got my dad's birthday in a day. Like, I don't want this woman to get me sick and then I can't be with my father. So just think about other people, please. Please think about other people. Please understand you're not the only person that lives on this planet. And, let's take the precautions that we can take. I know you may not feel well and you just want to feel better, but you got to think about other people. You got to think about other people. So Fax Porcupine Podcast, they like the show. Thank you, Fax Porcupine. Appreciate it. And it said, I'm under the weather to feel better, brother. And it says, I have the same cough and I wear a mask. So good for you, man. Appreciate you. So go out there and just think about other people. That's all we ask. Speaking of thinking about other people, the Jaguars are thinking about other people. They're trying to figure out who they want to interview. Jacksonville did something interesting here, though. They put their interview requests out in public, which I think is great because normally we're trying to figure out who are these people that the teams are interviewing. Well, the Jaguars got right out in front of it, and they decided to put their list out and say, here's the people that we've requested to talk to. Kellen Moore, the Eagles offensive coordinator. They also are trying to reach out to Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator of the Bucks. They're looking to Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator of the Bills. Todd Monken, the Ravens offensive coordinator as well. And they have also looked to Ben Johnson. So Ben Johnson of the Detroit Lions is somebody that's in demand here. This guy's probably Ben Johnson, in my opinion, he might be the guy that ends up making the lion's share of the money, pun fully intended. So Ben Johnson, we got an offensive coordinator for the Lions here that the Jaguars have requested to interview. And then looking at the rest of the list that they have, there's 3 more names on this list. And one of them being Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn is also is another guy that's connected here to the Lions, the defensive coordinator of the Lions, Mr. Aaron Glenn. And so that's the first defensive side of the ball coach that I've mentioned here in their interview requests. They've also looked at Patrick Graham. The Jaguars are requesting to interview Patrick Graham. And now Patrick Graham, if we take a look at him here, the Bengals defensive coordinator here. And so Bengals, looking at, not the Bengals defensive coordinator, a guy that we're looking at here in Patrick Graham. They're looking at him to be the defensive coordinator. Patrick Graham, currently the DC with the Las Vegas Raiders. I could still do that even though my throat's hurting a little bit today. So Patrick Graham, we got him as the DC of the Raiders. And the Raiders are obviously going through a change here as they just decided to let their head coach go after Black Monday. So we're now seeing another opportunity here that has opened up with the Raiders needing a head coach. And so now obviously go after that head coach's coordinators, right, and try and get them. And then Robert Saleh, who was the former head coach of the New York Jets. So that's the list for the Jaguars right now. So this Jets head coach that was let go, Robert Saleh. So that's the Jaguars list. Their list: Robert Saleh, Jets head coach, who was let go during the season. Aaron Glenn, Lions defensive coordinator. Patrick Graham, Raiders defensive coordinator. And then everybody else that the Jaguars have requested to interview is on the offensive side of the ball. Ben Johnson, Lions OC. Joe Brady, Bills OC. Todd Monken, Ravens OC. Kellen Moore, Eagles OC. And Liam Cohen, Bucks OC. So you can see that the majority of the requests by the Jaguars have been for an offensive-minded coach. And I think that's a good thing because the Jacksonville Jaguars have struggled this season. And when you look at offensively what they need to do moving forward, this Jaguars team is hurting. and you just signed Trevor Lawrence to a long-term deal, you need to be able to move the ball, and you got to keep your franchise quarterback happy, And it's not always possible, right? There's things that come with that. I mean, you can't keep everybody happy, but you got to try to get this ball moving. The Jaguars right now are toward the bottom portion of the NFL in yards per game. Now, granted, they didn't have Trevor Lawrence for a bunch of games this year, but they had 306.2 total yards per game. Chicago was worst, so they were at 32. So that's 31, 32, 31, 30, 29, 28, 27, 26, 20. Jaguars are 25th in offensive yards per game. I'm not going to look at passing yards per game because I'm not going to fault the Jaguars for having their backup quarterback. But I'm going to look at rushing yards per game. Rushing yards per game, the Jaguars were in the bottom portion as well. The Raiders were the worst. So it's 32, 31, 30, 29, 28, 27. Jaguars were 26th out of 32 NFL franchises with 101.7 rushing yards per game. The best team was the Ravens. I'm sure you guys could have guessed that, 187.6. Let's look at points per game. Points per game, the Jaguars were also in the bottom half again, around that 26 out of 32, only 18.8 points per game. The best team, the Lions, 33.2. The Bills, 30.9. The Ravens, 30.5. The Bucks, 29.5. So you can see why the Jaguars want to talk to the offensive coordinators of of the Lions, of the Bills, of the Ravens, and of the Bucks, because those teams were the teams that were scoring the most this season in the country. And those top four are four of the offensive coordinators that they want to talk to. So you can fully understand why that's important. On the defensive side of the ball, we take a look at the Lions in yards that were allowed per game. I'm trying to see where Detroit is here. Yards allowed per game, the Lions allowed over 340. Okay, well, it's not the greatest. So, because they are looking at talking to the defensive coordinator of the Lions. The Raiders allowed 333.1. Let's see how many points these defenses allowed per game. So the Lions allowed 20.1 points per game. They were 7th in the country in points allowed per game. And the Raiders allowed 25.5, and they were toward the bottom half. I mean, if I had to put my feet to the fire with the amount of offensive coordinators that are on this interview request list for the Jaguars, I would imagine they want somebody on the offensive side of the ball. They need to score. They need to score points. This Jacksonville team, they need to score points. They need to be able to close out games. So, with Aaron Glenn, I'm going to keep him. I'll say in this early look at the list of interview requests for the Jaguars for their next head coach, I'm going to keep Aaron Glenn on the list here because he's of the Lions. And I have said all season that the Lions are a Super Bowl caliber team. So I'm going to circle Aaron Glenn. I'm going to take Patrick Graham off the list. Maybe they want to hire him as their new defensive coordinator, but I don't think as their head coach. I don't think the Raiders did enough. I don't think hiring someone from the Raiders team is going to help this team out. I don't think it's going to be a good look for Jacksonville. Jacksonville has to make a splash. They have to bring somebody in who people feel like can make a difference. And I think that's important. I think it's very important that the Jaguars hire somebody that's coming from a good situation. And I don't want to fault people, right? I mean, teams lose and things happen. I'm just saying for the Jaguars and for what they can do and what they need to do moving forward and keeping this fan base involved, I don't think it's going to help out Jacksonville to hire a Raiders coordinator as their next head coach, because the Raiders didn't have a good season and the Jaguars didn't have a good season. So you don't want to take from one team that had a bad season, bring another team, you know what I mean, and take from another team. The Raiders right now are drafting right after Jacksonville. The Raiders are drafting 6th. The Jaguars are drafting 5th. So to me, that move for Patrick Graham isn't going to make any sense. Robert Saleh, I'm going to take him off the list too. The Jets had a terrible season. They finished well. The last game was fun to watch. If the last game was like every game, then people would probably be really excited about Aaron Rodgers and what's going on here. But the Jets got rid of Saleh during the season early to get rid of a coach in a season, and I just don't see why you would want to bring him in. You know, bring in a losing coach to your team and say, like, this is the guy that I want to have in here. That doesn't make sense to me. So I'm going to take Saleh off the list, because to me this doesn't help the Jaguars in any way, shape, or form. You know, to hire a guy that was fired during the season on a team that was one of the worst teams in the country, who's drafting 7th. I mean, you think about it. The Jaguars are drafting 5th. So do you want to have a head coach coming off of the team that's drafting 6th? Do you want to hire someone to be the head coach that's coming off the team that's drafting 7th? You want to go to a winning team and take one of those coordinators, not the ones that are drafting right by you. That, to me, has no logic. This team was terrible. We were terrible. Let's take their coach from a terrible team and let's try and fix our terrible team. Now, it makes more sense. And I'm not saying that these guys aren't talented. I'm not saying these guys can't do good things. But Robert Saleh, it doesn't make sense to bring him on to the Jaguars. It would make sense to maybe make him a coordinator again. But it doesn't make sense to make him a head coach and say, we've been losing, they've been losing, he's going to help us not lose. It just, that to me is not a work. And he had talent. He had talent. You got Breece Hall, you got Garrett Wilson. There's a lot of talent there. You got Sauce Gardner. So Jermaine Johnson got injured, but you got a bunch of guys there. And like I said, the Raiders, that's not going to make a splash. So we look at the Lions, look at the Bucks, look at the Eagles, look at the Ravens, look at the Bills. This all makes sense. These are playoff teams. So you're looking at the OCDC of the Lions. That's coming from a playoff team, a team that's capable of winning a Super Bowl, in my opinion. You have the Ravens, another team capable of winning a Super Bowl. You have the Eagles with a healthy Jalen Hurts, potentially capable of winning a Super Bowl. And you have the Bucks, who just won't go away. And Baker Mayfield and that team done an incredible job after Tom Brady retired. So I'm okay with them going to any of these. Ben Johnson, Lions OC, Joe Brady, Bills OC, Todd Monken, Ravens OC, Kellen Moore, Eagles OC, Liam Cohen, Bucks OC. If I had to put my feet to the fire and pick right now, I would really be interested in Todd Monken or Ben Johnson. But see, the thing with Todd Monken that doesn't make sense is Todd Monken has a running quarterback, a dual threat guy. And it's not that Trevor can't run, but Trevor's not the same as LeMura. So I don't know how that would fit and how he would fit. Now, he would be stepping in as a head coach and he'd be overseeing everything, but he's just been overseeing an offense with a different type of quarterback. So, but in argument's sake, you know, Joe Brady has too, because Josh Allen runs more. Ben Johnson, this could make sense because Jared Goff is more of a pocket passer. Liam Cohen, that can make more sense because Baker Mayfield's more of a pocket passer. You know, Kellen Moore, Jalen Hurts can run around and do different things, but you know, maybe that can make sense too. This is which one of these coaches has a plan to move forward, which one of these coaches has a list of names of guys that they could bring in if they become a head coach to be their coordinators, to be their assistants. So do they have a plan? Do they have a list of names? Do they have a viable list of these names that these guys would leave their current post to join them there? And what type of team would they want to run? Can they step away from being simply offense, simply defense, and be the head coach and oversee it all? Can they be a general manager of sorts to a team? Kellen Moore has been brought up on things before, so he becomes an interesting name. But, I think Jacksonville has to focus on the teams that are winning. I think those are the coordinators you need to go after. And I think they need to focus on the offensive side of the ball. Defense is going to take care of some stuff, right? D'Amico Ryans, he's done a good job going over to the Houston Texans as their head coach. Robert Salah coming from the Niners to the Jets, defensive minded. That hasn't really worked out. Obviously, he was let go. So, the defensive minded side, I think you need an offensive minded coach, and the defense will help take care of itself. I think the biggest thing is Jacksonville, again, they need to score. And again, it's hard to look at this season throughout because they didn't have Trevor Lawrence healthy. So, in my opinion, a healthy Trevor Lawrence. And what are they going to do with Travis Etienne? That's another question that comes up. What are the Jaguars going to do with Travis Etienne? He's in his rookie contract. They picked up his 5th year. And in 2026, so the club picked up the 2025-26 season, which we're heading into, but he's not extended out of his rookie contract yet. So is he their guy? Or are they going to go bring back Jacksonville native when they draft in this year's draft? Will the Jaguars at number 5 look at bringing in Ashton Genty? And then letting Etienne go somewhere else? Will they use Etienne as trade bait? They have the club option. They know he's coming back this coming year because they have it. Do they trade bait him? That's another thing to look at. The Jaguars need help on their offensive line. They need help on their defensive line. They arguably need some help in their secondary. They've got receivers. They've got a tight end. They've got a running attack. They've got a quarterback. Cam Little, their kicker that they drafted this year, he's been with them all the way through. Seems like that's where they're going to stay. So, I'll say it over and over again because it's true. George O'Leary, UCF former head coach, he said to me, sitting with me in a ballroom in Rhode Island, he said, you build a team from the inside out. That's how you build a championship, from the inside out, your offensive and defensive line. If you don't know that you're supposed to build from the trenches out, then you need to do something else other than coaching, because that is how you build a successful team. That's how you build a championship, from the inside out, from the trenches, from the offensive and defensive line. If a coach thinks that that's not how you do it, then maybe he should do something else. And Jacksonville needs help on their offensive and defensive line, and that's clear. They have hybrid guys. They have talented guys. They have Trayvon Walker. They have Josh Allen. They have Foye Oluokun. There's other things that they need to address, though. The front group. And are you going to put 4 down or are you going to put 3 down? That's another thing to look at. I'm a fan of 4. I'm a fan of 4. You want to move Josh Allen up or somebody up and have 4 in the front. To me, that would make some sense here. Because then you could have 2 corners, 2 safeties, so that puts 4 in the back. And then you got 4 up front, and then you got 3 linebackers. That makes sense. The 4-3-4. I like it. I know that 5 DBs has done some good things for Syracuse, so they could run a 4-2-5 or a 3-3-5, see if that works for them. But I think that they need to have 2 DNs and a D tackle, a nose tackle. I think they need to have 4 down. That's my opinion. I think they've been light at defensive linemen in recent history. They haven't had a lot of depth. So I think Jacksonville needs to address their offensive and defensive line absolutely. And then they got to figure out what they want to do at running back. What if Travis Hunter falls to 5? Do they take him? I think if Genty is there at 5, Jacksonville, whether they do it or not, they they need to take some time and they need to dance with that. Because the reality of it all is he's a Jaguars native, or he's a Jacksonville native. Speaking of Ashton Genty. And that would be a huge, huge boost to their fan base. The ones that entice me the most are Ben Johnson. Todd Monken does. He's just coming from a different offense. So I would say Ben Johnson, Liam Cohen, because of the quarterbacks that they have where they are. And then, maybe a Joe Brady from the Bills. So I just got a feeling Ben Johnson's, wherever he goes, he's going to get a nice chunk of change. So we'll see. That's the list that the Jaguars have. Most of them are offensive coordinators. A couple are defensive coordinators. And one head coach in Robert Salah. We'll talk about this and more right after the break on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life, with my buddy Jason Lucas. Stay with us.
Hi, this is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the Whole Frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating at 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday in-store and always online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, order anywhere, anytime at maandpaspopcorn.com. Stop in to get a tin at Ma and Pa's on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York to get your half-price refills for the rest of your life. Come to Ma and Pa's for your holiday gift giving for family, friends, employees, and clients. And remember, for fundraising and events, to call 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you?
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare it to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
And a welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. We are here and ready to have Mr. Lucas on the broadcast here with us. So as we get this set and ready to go here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, I appreciate you being here with us Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And as we get Jason here on the broadcast, I want to remind you all to make sure to be with us on Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, X at Call DT, and Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT. So with that being said, we are picture in picture with Mr. Lucas, sports and entertainment vet, and we're here to talk about UCF, the college football playoff, and the NFL playoffs. Sometimes things do work out. Sometimes the road of that fork in the road, and I just wonder if I had gone down that other road, what would have happened? And in the case of Scott Frost, there was that question of if he had stayed at UCF, if he had stayed in Orlando, if he had continued to build what he was building, what would that have looked like? Oh man, I wish that we could know that. I wish we could see that. But he went to Nebraska. He went back to his alma mater. We'll never know. Psych. And now we do know. So now he's back. He's back at UCF. And I can imagine that Jason is as elated as I am, because I was sitting in that room on campus at the Bounce House for that post-game press conference when they won the American Athletic Championship game, and Scott Frost was all pink in the face. He only got more pink in the face, more tears, more just conflicted he looked. And I remember sitting there in that room going, oh no, oh no. And I could feel it in my stomach. I was so happy for him, so happy for the team, so happy for the work that they put in, but also thinking in my head, please don't leave. Please don't leave this team. And then I went upstairs, and less than an hour later, they came up and they said, hey, we're going to be doing something down in the press conference room. We're going to be talking about our search for our new head coach. That's how quick it happened. That in that moment, if I had never known it before, I understood what type of business collegiate athletics is and has become. So with that being said, we have Jason here on the show. We're going to talk about Scott Frost, but I had to give that little prelude to all of this because there was nobody else I wanted to talk to about this other than Jason and Scott himself. So Mr. Lucas, how we doing?
Man, we're freezing cold. It's like 45 degrees in Orlando today. So any plans to do this outdoors were foiled by how cold it is outside. I was like, I can't do it. So back in the house we go.
Yeah, so you're back. So, I mean, looking, you said back in the house. Well, back in the bounce house is Mr. Scott Frost. Your thoughts on him and on a frosty morning, I guess it does make a lot of sense here. For us, because every time I clean the snow in central New York, it snows over the snow that I cleaned the last 2 days. So my dog is like, where's my path? But she's a trooper. She gets out there and does her thing. So with a frost down in Florida and a frost fully in central New York, Scott Frost is back with UCF. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it was the right decision for him and for the school. I think, he was with the Rams doing some work there as just an assistant. And I think this was the right time for UCF to bring him back and to have, some goodwill with the fan base who were ready to throw Gus Malzahn on the bus and never look back. So I think it's an exciting time. It's also a time to be patient. Yeah. And, it's going to take time for him to build into the new NIL infrastructure and all that stuff. I think it was also a huge deal bringing in Mackenzie Milton as his quarterback coach and keeping Coach Becton. So I think it's just going to be something that's going to take a while to work out here at UCF, but I'm also very excited to see that Scott Frost is back and brings that winning culture more than anything, because his players from those teams in 16 and 17, those are the guys that are still around now that, they built a culture and it was more of a family atmosphere than it ever is now in these NIL era of, hey, it's all about me.
Yeah, and you made mention of the fact that you feel like it's the right time. Why does it make sense? I mean, this is something that is atypical in sports. We don't typically see coaches return to where they could have been when they made a decision to go elsewhere. He was UCF's head football coach. He led them to an undefeated season, and then he went to his alma mater of Nebraska. He had built a home in Orlando. It seemed like he was comfortable in Orlando. It seemed like he liked Orlando. And at the same time, he was conflicted in the reality of, as much as he had found a second home in Orlando, he had a home in Nebraska as well that was built from being there for his alma mater. So I can't fault him for leaving. I don't think anybody can. It was a really tough decision to make. But why do you think it's the right time, and why do you think he's the right guy?
Yeah, I mean, I was somebody that was on Twitter banging the drum for Scott Frost to come back. It took a lot of heat, and actually there's a lot of people that don't agree with it being the right time. They said, we're over it. He left us. Why would we want him back? Because he just left us. And, a lot of people having that kind of Shaquille O'Neal leaving the small pond for the big fish feeling here. And, I think the timing of everything is just perfect. UCF is on a next level now from where it was when he was here. And he said that in his press conference, like, hey, it's kind of cool that I'm able to come back and try to help you reach another level. And, that being conference championships in the Big 12 and making the playoff and shots at national championships. So it's things to be excited about, and to be able to do it with the guy that you got to give him the credit more than anybody for getting UCF from a 0-12 season to 13-0 and claiming a national championship in 2 years. So he's definitely shown that he can come in with that culture. They say that he's like the culture god. So that's what we're looking for, is for him to come in and build a group of guys that are going to come in and be about the team and the university, and not so much about themselves. And hopefully, in this world, he's able to do it. It's a tall task for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is, when he was the head coach of UCF in the past, they were part of the American Athletic Conference. They've since moved on to the Big 12. And I've had a conversation about this recently. The Big 12 has no identifier. They lost their identifiers. They lost their identity in Texas and Oklahoma. So some might say BYU, some might say Baylor, some might say Oklahoma State. But there's also the reality that UCF is within that now, doing some things. Colorado's tried to do some things with Deion Sanders in prime time. So is this a prime time for Scott Frost to be UCF's head coach, because they're now in a different conference, and that conference is looking for a leader?
Yeah, no, I think, for Scott Frost, it's kind of the pot of gold at the end of a rainbow, where he went through so much at Nebraska and really, kind of destroyed his reputation as a good coach by going there the way that he did, and then struggling to win any games up there. So, UCF in the Big 12, it's our chance to step up. And like I said, it's very special to be able to do it with Scott Frost, with Mackenzie Milton coming back, and like I said, with Coach Becton still here, who's my guy from many years ago at the Predators. So very excited. I'm excited for our opportunity to build it, and it's going to take time. We're not gonna do it this year. We may do a little better next year, and I think 3 or 4 years down the road, you're going to be able to see, Scott Frost guys are all in the program, and he'll be able to build it the way that he thought. And honestly, when he came the first time, he said he thought it would take 4 or 5 years to maybe get to a conference championship. He ends up winning it in year 2 and then winning the Peach Bowl. So for him, I think he's thinking, hey, I'm going to need 4 or 5 years here to get everything how I want it and get you competitive into the Big 12. And it was a competitive football conference this past season. It was tough. Yeah. BYU came in and blew our doors off, and so did Colorado. So it's been a rough time. Even Utah at the bottom of the conference came in and blew us out too. So it's going to take some time to get the guys to do what he wants to do.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, and when he was there, it was UCF Fast, right? That hashtag UCF AST. Is that the notion now? I mean, is that what he wants? Does he want a fast offense? Does he want a no huddle, get to the ball, and 80 plays a game, 90 plays a game, 100 plays a game? What have you learned about what he wants? Is it Scott Frost being the Scott Frost that we knew? Or is this a Scott Frost evolved to say, yeah, we might do some of those components, but we're going to have other pieces?
Yeah, I think something I heard him mention in the press conference, and it's really the only preview I have as of this moment until I see a spring game and, maybe some fall practice, but he's going to slow it down a little bit compared to what he used to do. He, ran the fast offense, and what you run into with running the fast offense is when you go 3 and out, you've had the ball for 6 seconds and you're putting it right back, and here's your defense out there exhausted. And if you had any kind of lead, you're going to lose it really fast too. So I think we're getting an older and wiser, a lot more experience than he had the first time, Scott Frost. So I think that definitely it's going to be a little bit of a different look. And, obviously he had a very special quarterback when he was here in Mackenzie Milton. So I think, he's got to kind of look and see who that's going to be. And I don't even think if you asked him today, he would know who it is.
Yeah. And as we look at things right now, I'm looking at the transfer portal currently. And on December 15th, G-Mama's birthday, we saw that an interior offensive lineman, Carter Miller, has come from Louisiana Monroe to UCF. And then Hall, a wide receiver for UCF, left for Sacramento State. That happened on January 5th. And then Chauncey Magwood, a wide receiver, left UCF for Purdue. We're also seeing a Lewis Carter, who left Oklahoma, is coming to UCF as a linebacker. He's from Tampa Catholic in Tampa, Florida, so he returns back to his home state. And then some other news here. Taven Jackson, a quarterback from Indiana, is coming to UCF as a redshirt sophomore, originally hailing from Indiana. So we're seeing some of these moves that have come through here. Sincere Edwards from Pitt is going to UCF on the defensive line. So there's something to look at with that as well. And then Jair Brown, a corner, has committed from UCF from LSU, which is kind of ironic because UCF played LSU just a few years back in a bowl game there in Dylan Gabriel's, I think, second ever collegiate football game. And then here's something that I don't want to mention, but I do have love for it and I can be okay with it. There's 2 guys that left Syracuse and have committed to UCF, both defensive backs. Jaden Bellamy from Syracuse to UCF and Jaden Gould, a safety, is going from Syracuse to UCF. So they have both jumped in the portal and are heading out to UCF. So they brought in a quarterback. They brought in some Syracuse DBs from a team that went 10-3. Your thoughts on what UCF is doing in the portal, and your thoughts about how you and I connect for like the millionth time in the fact that 2 DBs are leaving Syracuse for Orlando.
Yeah, no, it's fun to watch and kind of see who's coming in. At this point, don't have a lot of information on what anybody's going to be in the Scott Frost system and in the defensive side of the ball. There's just not a lot to say until you see it on the field. Yeah. To me, Sincere Edwards is a guy that we were excited about last transfer season. He had actually committed to UCF out of high school and went up to Pitt. So he's one we got back.
Yeah. Yeah, and you got DJ Bell, who's coming from Memphis, safety as well, going to UCF. So there's a lot of moves that are happening here. But the good thing that I'm seeing here is there are arrows going in and out of UCF, but there's a lot of different talent coming into UCF, coming from Ole Miss, coming from North Carolina, coming from LSU, coming from Syracuse, coming from Oklahoma, coming from Georgia Tech. So there's a bunch of bowl teams coming from Pitt as well, like you said with Sincere. So it does look like Scott Frost definitely has caught the eye of some people. And Jaden Goulds was in Nebraska when Scott Frost was there. So he leaves and comes to Syracuse, and now he is reuniting from Syracuse with Scott Frost after being with him in Nebraska. So I find that to be interesting, but this transfer portal allows for that to happen. We see players return to coaches, and I find that to be kind of a cool story for Jaden Gould, at least in his world.
Yeah, definitely. And we were lucky to retain some kids that jumped in the portal. Yeah. The Henderson twins, we were able to retain both of them. They're both defensive backs, which I think they should be playing receiver because I saw them in high school and they were amazing playing receiver. Cam Moore came back too. So we were able to retain all the kids from Seminole High School that actually they all jumped in the portal at the same time and they all jumped out at the same time. Thank goodness.
Yeah, so that's the other thing too. Is what I was going to ask you is, have you seen that since he's come in, there's guys that have taken their name out of the portal, which you were just talking about here, because that's huge, right? Guy, they see a coaching change, they jump in the portal. I'm getting out of here, and then he comes in and says, "Hey, give me a chance, give me an opportunity to kind of show you what I can do." And he obviously got through to some people, which I think is good.
Yeah, no, it's really important to try to retain some of the talent that's especially the local kids. I feel like, it just brings more of a pride and more of a care when you have guys that are actually from Orlando area that are on the team. So I think that's a big deal to be able to keep them, and they were able to keep Dylan Rizek, the quarterback from last season that had some ups and downs, but showed some promise. And I think that under Mackenzie Milton, he's somebody that could be a lot better in the future. Whether he's going to be the starter or not remains to be seen, but pretty exciting just to be able to keep those guys, the core, and just be able to have some familiar faces out there, because this last season with 50 new players under Gus Malzahn was a guessing game who was who until you really got into like the third or fourth game. You didn't even know who any of the players were.
So we're here with Jason Lucas, sports and entertainment vet, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. And we are, of course, inside of the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. You can head off to Great Lakes Monday through Saturday for new and used vehicles of all different shapes and sizes, and ones that are not only looking sleek and looking cool, but they're good on gas mileage and they protect you. I have to thank and be so happy that Honda created a vehicle that arguably saved my life with the 1999 CRV, and how it was reinforced with steel in its frame when I was hit by a drunk driver. So Honda is not just a place we support, it's a place that has supported me, and arguably their product helped to save my life and prevent me from being paralyzed so many years ago. So thank you to Honda for the work that you do. I truly appreciate that. With that being said, here, Jason Lucas here with us and having the conversation about UCF currently. Gus Malzahn, here's the interesting thing about his story. He was at Auburn, and in a year where Auburn was the only team to defeat Alabama and Georgia, who ended up going on to play for a national championship, UCF defeated that Auburn team. And instead of getting credit for it nationally, people said, well, Auburn was tired, their players didn't want to play, they didn't care. The typical excuses, instead of just saying, yeah, we lost. Now, if Auburn had beaten UCF, those same people probably would have said, yeah, that's right, you're the little brother, we're the big brother, stay where you're at. But I go back and look at that game as one of the feathers in the cap of the American Athletic and of UCF history. Well, Gus Malzahn was on the other side of that loss that he took when UCF got that win with Scott Frost. And so now the irony of Frost beats Malzahn, now Frost is following Malzahn. Gus said when he came from he was let go at Auburn, he had some time to himself, he came to UCF and he went to the other side. Typically we saw the coaches getting poached out of the American. He decided to come to the American at the time. He said he wanted to build something here and that this was his last stop, that he was going to stay at UCF. What happened, Mr. Lucas, with the Gus Malzahn era?
Interesting. Another note about Gus is that he was on the other side of Florida State, Jameis Winston National Championship. He was the Auburn head coach when they lost to Florida State, and now he went to Florida State as the offensive coordinator. So he's just taking a tour of people that have beat him, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But what happened? He lost the whole team. You felt like he lost the whole team. He lost the fan base. A lot of the same coach speak, and a lot of questions and not many answers when it came to Gus Malzahn. Unfortunately, at the end, I feel like we wanted to fire him, and I think it was probably 2 weeks before the end of the season. They were talking about they knew that he was leaving, so they knew they wouldn't have to fire him. So at the end of the day, it works out for UCF and it works out for Gus that there was no buyout. No money had to exchange hands. So that's a big deal, I think, to keep that. I think it was going to be like $6 or $7 million to buy him out. So at least they were able to keep that money. And, good luck to Gus. Thanks for your time here.
Yeah.
We enjoyed having you. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out. And sometimes that's, that's just how it goes. I think Gus, a lot like Nick Saban, just an old ball coach, and unfortunately, the old ball coaches are getting ran out of the game that they once ruled because NIL is just, it's different, and it makes the kids think differently. I think more than anything, you've got the kids thinking more about themselves than about that name on the front. Yeah. They're thinking about that name on the back and how much money they can make with that name, and that's great for you. But at the end of the day, I think UCF had a lot of guys that were like, you bring in KJ Jefferson, and I'm not afraid to say it, he was garbage. I mean, we went to Florida and, listen to the radio broadcast, and they're talking about how talented UCF's quarterback is. And I'm like, what have they been watching? Yeah. And then we go out there and he could barely even complete a pass. It was really, this last season was really embarrassing and really rough for me as a UCF and Dolphins fan in a lot of ways. And walking out of Ben Hill Griffin there at the University of Florida after watching KJ, it was embarrassing. Like, I don't even have the words for it. It was embarrassing. So hopefully you bring some of the right guys in and the right kind of guys in. And I think that's what's going to be important, going forward from Gus Malzahn.
Yeah, and like you said, it didn't work out. It seemed like it was going to be a huge splash for the team. I had the opportunity of interviewing him when he came in. And, ultimately, the Gus Malzahn era just didn't translate into victories here. I know you said, like, it was a hard season for you. It was a tough season for you to go through. Does anything have to do with it, the fact that they moved from the American to the Big 12 and all the shakeup with the Big 12 and the changing of the Big 12 and the new teams coming into the Big 12 with Arizona and Arizona State and Colorado and Utah? Do you feel like that affected the Gus Malzahn era, that he was dealing with NIL, transfer portal, and realignment?
Yeah, I think, he was in over his head. It's really the only thing I can think of to say is that he was in over his head. All of those things, plus he would never hand over the playbook and let somebody else run the offense. You had Darren Hinshaw sitting right there, a very talented guy and a guy that we thought would want to air it out some. And I don't know. Gus just wouldn't hand over the reins. He did a lot of just questionable stuff that there were no answers for. You'd ask him at the end of the game and it was the same coach speak and the same excuses. And, unfortunately we wasted a season where RJ Harvey went off. Like every game RJ was doing his thing, but we didn't have a solid quarterback because we paid $600,000 reportedly to a quarterback that couldn't throw.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say.
And looking at, and it's funny because you mentioned your running back and you mentioned what he's done this season. You mentioned the successes that he had, and a lot of this is overshadowed, right, by the work of Ashton Jeanty at Boise State and Cam Scadaboo, who I got to see live at Arizona State. But RJ Harvey, I do want to let people know this. And the work that he did this year, he wore number 7 for UCF. Harvey was with UCF in the COVID year, and then he didn't record any stats in 2021. We saw him in 2022, 23, 24. And in the past 2 seasons, 2023, 24, 24, 25, he had over 220 carries in both of those seasons. 226 in 2023, 1,416 yards, 6.3 yards a carry, and 16 rushing touchdowns. This season, 232 carries, 1,577 in yards, 6.8 yards a carry, 22 rushing touchdowns. And I do say this and say this proudly, I can only vote for 2 running backs this year for college football. I voted for Ashton Jeanty, who we know obviously has been at the top of everything. And I voted for RJ Harvey, and RJ Harvey got his award and was honored as one of the top quarterbacks in the country, or top running backs in the country. So to RJ, I just want to let you know that when it comes to that All-American stuff, I did throw that vote in for RJ Harvey, and very happy to see the work that he's done and well deserving of it. Him, Scadaboo, as well as Ashton Genty have done a tremendous job. I'm going to send some love to LeQuint Allen Jr. from Syracuse, because without him and without literally his desire and his will and his fight, they definitely lose like 2 of those games where he was pulling guys into the end zone. So I do want to spend some time with RJ Harvey on this, because like I said, when I can only vote for 2 running backs, RJ Harvey is one of the running backs I voted for nationally. And I don't feel bad about that by any stretch of the imagination. I'd love to get your take on a running back that had just shy of 1,600 rushing yards, 22 touchdowns, and almost 7 yards a carry.
Good. I was hoping you weren't going to skip my thoughts on RJ Harvey.
No.
RJ actually went to high school right here at Edgewater, which is probably about 20 minutes from where I'm sitting here in Orlando. He was a quarterback at Edgewater, highly recruited. Ends up at Virginia, spends a year there, doesn't really play much, comes back to UCF as a running back, which he had never played before.
Yeah.
Tears his ACL. He actually won the job, but tore his ACL. He won the job over Zay Bowser that was here for a couple years. Comes back and puts up these last 3 seasons, especially the last 2 seasons. He's been one of the top backs in the country, having never played the position before 2021-22. So a really amazing kid. He's such a great part of the community here. He's not one of the kids that I'm ever talking about when I say about the NIL Me First kids. RJ is just, he's a role model in the community. He works with the kids in the community, runs football camps, does all sorts of stuff. Nothing but the best for him. I hope to be able to watch him on Sunday.
Yeah, and we hope to. Oh, we just froze for a second. You said you hope to watch him when?
I hope to watch him on Sundays. I hope that he gets drafted and we're able to see him play on Sundays. Hopefully somewhere here in Florida. That'd be even better.
Yeah, as he hails from his birthplace of Orlando, Florida. Here with Jason Lucas. We're going to jump to the college football playoff here and have a conversation on the CFP. We're going to do that right after this fast break on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. So stay with us as we get set to talk plenty more with Jason, sports and entertainment vet, here on Wake Up Call inside of the Great Lakes Honda City Studios on the college football playoff, the NFL playoffs, and an email that I just received from the college football playoff about the weather down in Texas and thoughts on that. Avicoli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicoli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicoli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there. And of course, you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100. And also find them on myavicolis.com. That's myavicollis.com. Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying, in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When
you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant.
GG Cards and Breaks. Like, comment, subscribe.
GG Cards and Breaks, coming to you on 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York, is your one-stop sports card and trading card shop. You can find them Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 6 and on Sundays from 10 to 5 right off of Teal Ave with hockey, soccer, basketball, baseball, football, as well as Disney Lorcana, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, and more. Singles, graded cards, autographed cards. They have autographed from different actors and actresses, potential one-of-one cards. You'll never know what you're going to find at GG Cards and Breaks unless you go and visit them on 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York. If you've never collected cards before, you're going to find out why it's so cool and how it helps you to stay a big kid when you go in there today. And if you're like me and you've been collecting for the majority of your life, well, you know that those treasures at GG Cards and Breaks are second to none, and the service above all is paramount. And that starts with Josh and Anthony. So thank you to each and every single one of the staff members at GG Cards and Breaks. We look forward to seeing you there Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 6 and on Sundays from 10 to 5 on 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York. We have Jay Bird back, but Jay Bird is dark now, so we have to...
Am I dark?
Yeah, we have to lighten him up. The crazy thing about this is you look like an Italian that's being... you're being interviewed on like 2020 about some hit and run or something like that. That's what you look like right now. So, it's like, he was over there and I was just like, I was talking to Bobby. And, but I mean, it's just, we're going to have to lighten up Jason here. We're going to have to do some cosmetic work on him right now. Hold on. Let me see if I can fix it.
Is that any better?
Make him a little prettier. Hold on. Let's see here. There we go. Let me see if I can make it a little bit more. And we're gonna redden your face. We're gonna lighten you here. We're gonna make you look pretty. There's Jason. So We're gonna continue the conversation on the college football playoff. I just got an email from the college football playoff. I'd love to read it to you. This is a statement from AT&T Stadium as well as the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. We continue to monitor weather reports, and over the last 24 hours, the forecast for later this week has improved, according to the National Weather Service. We have been meeting routinely with city officials, the Director of Transportation for North Texas, and the College Football Playoff. Should the forecast shift, we are prepared for all contingencies. North Texas highways are already being brined and plans are in place to assure a safe environment for everyone in and around AT&T Stadium on game day. The teams arrive tomorrow, as planned. And the 2025 College Football Playoff semifinal at the 89th Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic will kick off on Friday evening as scheduled. Now it's set for this Friday, January 10th at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, which is 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So everything right now is going on as planned for the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. Now, I'm supposed to be down there in Texas, so I'm hoping that the weather gets better, lightens up here, and that we find our way to get this game played. Obviously, safety is most important to me. Safety, health, that takes precedence over literally everything else, and that's why I, who am under the weather right now, have postponed some of the events that I'm doing because of my sore throat and because of the fact that I need rest so that I can be there on Friday. So they said they're prepared for all contingencies. I think that would probably include if they have to switch to Saturday. So we shall see. But hopefully things will work out in the favor of just weather in general, no matter when that weather, hopefully the weather never comes through and they don't have to worry about it. But Jason, your thoughts on this? We saw a tragedy this past week when New Orleans had to change their game day and time because of someone who had evil plans for New Orleans. And now we have something that is weather related, which is out of the control of the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. Just your take on this unique college football playoff that has extended. Obviously, nobody thought that there would be a terrorist attack, and I'm going to call it a terrorist attack because this person went into the community and sought to kill people, didn't care if they died. So I'm going to absolutely consider it a terrorist attack. So your thoughts on having to go through that with the beautiful city of New Orleans, and then secondly, in a totally different situation, the fact that weather, even though this is an indoor stadium, could play a part because of everyone traveling to Texas.
Yeah, my thoughts go to everybody there in New Orleans. I'm a big Bourbon Street guy, Bourbon Street veteran from many Orlando Predators trips to New Orleans. So one of my favorite places to go, and I hope everybody's praying up and healing up. I know it's just such a horrible thing to happen. My thoughts are there, man. But I think, as far as college football playoff goes, I think it's been kind of boring up to this point, if you ask me. Now, pulling it up and seeing it's Texas, Ohio State, and Penn State, Notre Dame, we have 2 national championship games this weekend, if you ask me now.
Yeah.
So I don't think this will be as boring. I think now is when it's going to get good. I think we're used to those January 1st games being the ones that are good, but this time they really weren't. I think now we're going to get into the thick of it with Texas and Ohio State, and Penn State Notre Dame is basically a pick'em game. Yeah. So this is going to be exciting. These are the heavyweights going now. So this is, and I think maybe if you picked the 4, this could have been a good 4. Back like the old days.
Yeah, and when we look at this, I mean, I've said it before, the Big Ten and Notre Dame as kind of an extension of the Big Ten, I kind of look at this as, is they do get an unfair advantage in the polls throughout the year. If they lose games, they're not punished as much. They're held in high esteem no matter who they play, even if it's a bunch of unranked teams. But to the credit of Penn State and Notre Dame and Ohio State this year, they have backed it up. They haven't always backed it up. Notre Dame was in the college football playoff 2 other times and didn't back up why. Ohio State had been given the opportunity for years to be in the CFP and hasn't necessarily backed it up. And Penn State should have probably been in a few years ago, but they weren't. So looking at where we are right now with these schools, Penn State has backed it up, Ohio State has backed it up, and Notre Dame has backed it up for this specific season. Do you think that, I mean, when we look at the Big Ten and Notre Dame and what I think is an unfair advantage in the polls, what is it about these teams that sticks out to you this year? And do you agree that typically, no matter who they play, these teams are given a little more of a leash than maybe some other schools?
I mean, Notre Dame especially, you take a loss to Northern Illinois at home, that should be an eliminator, but I guess, okay, well, keep going. They've played well since then. they stay motivated.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what.
Sorry, go ahead.
So I'm glad Notre Dame got in there. I'm glad they found a way to finally, prove their way to get into the semifinals, I guess is what they call it now. But to get into the top 4, they actually had to play their way into it and have done that. So, and I think, Texas is very deep at quarterback, as we all know. I think Texas, they have a shot to pull an upset over Ohio State. I think Texas is every good as Michigan that went into Ohio State and beat the Buckeyes. So I think, if you're a bettor, you got to look at Texas and say, hey, plus money on Texas. I got to take that. So, but I think it'll be very close. I think both these games are going to be very hotly contested, very close games.
Do you like the format of the 12? And is there anything that you would change when it comes to that? So do you like that there's 12 now? And you and I have talked about expansion for a while, but do you like it at 12? Do you want to, let's start there. Do you like the 12 or do you want to see 14 or 16? Because this is the first year of 12, but we've already heard rumblings before this playoff was even put into action this season that there was the rumbling of 14. Now apparently there's a rumbling of 16. So what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think 12's enough. I think the first 2 rounds I had to kind of survive. I didn't really watch a lot of it because the games got out of hand so fast, most of them. I think 12's a good number. I think 12's a good number because now, okay, we're getting into the good part now. If I could change something, maybe have the second round on campus too, so that way the teams that got a bye also get a home game.
Yeah. I mean that could work. I mean, you look at where these teams are at, and you look at the fact that the way that they have it set up this year is that the top 4 seeds were given to conference champions. Every single one of those teams lost. So are you a person who leans on the side of keep it the way it is, and that's just how it happened this year, and let's make sure that the automatic bids stay conference champions? Or do you look at this and say that the 5 automatic bids should be the 5 highest ranked teams in the country, even if they come from the same conference?
I think winning your conference has to have some esteem to it. I like the way they did your conference. These are the teams that are the most familiar with you and with what you do, and you're able to go through there undefeated or with 1 loss, 2 losses. I think that deserves respect, and I think you should get something extra for winning your conference because it's not easy to do that.
Yeah, there's people that look at this and say, well, all those conference champions lost, so maybe somebody else should have been ranked higher. Maybe somebody else should have been there. But here's my thing, Jay. When we look at this college football playoff and we look at what we're going to do going forward and the tweaking of it and whatnot, if conference championships don't matter, which it didn't matter with Ohio State, it didn't matter with Indiana, it's never going to matter with Notre Dame as long as they stay independent. It almost, in a weird way, kind of benefits a team to not be in a conference championship game. And it didn't help Army to be in it. Army was 11-1, won their conference championship first year in a conference. They should have been in my opinion, over Indiana. I think any one of the 11 would have beaten Indiana. And I'm not trying to knock Indiana for being 11-1. I'm proud of them. Those 11 wins came against unranked teams. Their only loss came against Ohio State, which they lost by multiple scores. Here's the crazy thing, though, and I don't know if you saw this graphic on television, but there was a statement when they were showing Indiana before they even played Ohio State. It said, if Indiana loses to Ohio State, not by how much, not if they win.
Right.
It said if they lose to Ohio State, they have a 96% chance of getting in the college football playoff. Who the heck in the history of anything has almost 100% chance at having a spot by losing a game by any margin? So the question that I pose to you as we step forward in this thing is if they turn around and say, well, we're just going to have the highest ranked teams, which would have had Oregon and Ohio State from the same conference, and arguably Penn. I mean, you could have had three Big Ten teams in the top 4 automatic buys that don't have to play in the first round. If they get rid of conference championships giving you a bye for at least 4 of the top 5, then do we just get rid of conference championships altogether? Because at that point, do they matter?
Yeah, no, the point of the conference championship back when they started them in, I think it was like 91 or 92 when they really started playing a conference championship game. I think the SEC was the leader on that. It was an extra game to play for a lot of money at a neutral site. And, you know, maybe it is something they look into, getting rid of the conference championship game, but then you've got held up conference championships. So I don't know, you know, you got the co-championship like the American had in 2013 with, or 2014 with UCF and a couple of others. So it does open up a Pandora's box because those are big money games. And I think anything that's money, ESPN, you know, their attention is on that, as well as if it's Fox that does the Big 12, like, yeah, their eyes are on the money. So I think you won't see those games go anywhere, but they just don't hold the weight they used to.
So you and I know that we have had a conversation about college football for many, many, many years. Since 2020, I've made some predictions, made some things. In 2022, I think, added on to that or expanded into different thoughts that I have. One of the things that I've talked about is that college football in Division I FBS would split into 3. Or pardon me, would split into 2. And that Division I AA FCS would essentially be Division I AAA, so to speak. Because we would have Division 1A, Division I AA, Division I AAA, in a way, Tier 1, 2, and 3. The conversation extended with a longtime coach Mike Houston this past week on Friday, where he brought up something very similar. And he talked, well, he actually said a Tier 1, 2, and 3. And I said, Mike, it's funny that you say that because I've said this around the same thing. That the SEC would be its own, or now the SEC and the Big Ten, and then that would leave every other conference to fend for itself. Are we heading toward Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, which, for argument's sake, Tier 1 would be the SEC and the Big Ten, or the SEC, Big Ten, Big 12, and ACC. Tier 2 would be the rest of the FBS, and then Tier 3 would stay the FCS, and they wouldn't get affected at all. They would just be called something else. Are we in a world right now where Division I FBS, Division 1A FBS, is going to separate into 2 pieces? Do you believe that the tiers are coming and that the SEC and the Big Ten, especially if they are to grab Notre Dame, Clemson, Florida State, maybe Miami, that they'll essentially move SEC Big Ten into its own and then leave the ACC, leave the Big 12, leave the rest of those autonomy groups with the group of, so to speak, which I can't stand calling them that, but it helps people understand it. Are we going to a world where the 10 FBS conferences is really going to be 2, and then the other 8 are going to have to do a different playoff?
It's interesting you say that because, you know, here's the thing about the SEC, and it's always been the same. And as long as you have Vanderbilt in the SEC, I can't even honestly call that, like, great. And Vanderbilt had a great year this year. You know what they did? They went 3-5 in conference. That's like probably the best year they've had in the last 20 years in the SEC. Yeah. Mississippi State 0-8, Kentucky 1-7, Auburn 2-6. You had some really just stink teams in the SEC this year, and that's what we're going to call Tier 1. I don't know. I don't know that they're ever going to get that to pass when half of the SEC is Cupcake City.
Well, and that the question becomes, with the SEC's expansion and the Big Ten's expansion and the potential look at bringing in other schools like a Clemson, like a Florida State, like a Notre Dame, like a Miami, do they have the right in expansion to also have subtraction? Does the SEC say we're going to go to tier 1 and we're going to drop Vanderbilt, we're going to drop Kentucky, we're going to drop Mississippi State? Does the Big Ten say we're going to drop Rutgers, we're going to drop Nebraska, we're going to drop Maryland?
Exactly. I mean, that's you know, if you're going to have all the expansion and addition, there should be subtraction for play. And when you're Vanderbilt, you've been sitting there in the SEC for 100 years. I don't even know how long they've been there, but like it's been a long time.
Yeah.
They've never won the conference, like ever.
Yeah.
I just don't see how they, number one, wouldn't get subtracted. Kentucky, I could see keeping for basketball, but their football has never been anything to write home about. You know, even Arkansas has really fallen off. Like Arkansas used to be, you know, Darren McFadden days, like they were pretty good, but
yeah,
in these latter years, they have not been a football juggernaut. So I think they got to start talking about subtraction if they're going to keep talking about addition, because how much does it suck when, you know, you're sharing your money with teams that are just terrible, with schools that don't even really care about their athletics, like Vanderbilt?
Well, it comes down to the question of how long does Ohio State want to share money with Rutgers? How long does Michigan think that Maryland deserves a piece of the pie? How long does Alabama think that they should be giving to Mississippi State when they could be taking more of the share? So, you know, and when Rutgers and Maryland came into the Big Ten, it's almost like when the Big Ten added these schools, they were almost saying, we're adding you, but we're also putting you in your place. Because when Rutgers and Maryland went into the Big Ten, if I'm correct, they took less of a percentage of the money. So it was like, yeah, we're going to add you guys and we're going to expand our conference, but we're going to put you in your spot. We're going to expand, but we're going to tell you that, like, you're our little brother. And if I was Maryland or Rutgers and I had a conference telling me, we'll take you, but we're not treating you the same, I wouldn't go. And, you know, so, I mean, you look at Rutgers, you look at Maryland. Here's something that's, I guess, to some people a deep dive, but to me, not out of the realm of possibility. And I've said it within the past year. All of this realignment, addition, potential subtraction, will we finally go to a place where Rutgers, Maryland, Pittsburgh, Syracuse, BC, and so on and so forth, are we heading toward a world? I want to say Penn State, but they'll probably be more than covered in this thing with the amount of money that they make. I've been to some of their facilities and seen what they have there at Penn State and what they're doing right now, so I'm not going to include them in this. But are we heading toward a world where if the SEC and the Big Ten do make a move and leave together, will we see the return of Big East football and see these schools come back and form a conference saying, we don't really belong in the ACC. Let's say the ACC loses Clemson and Florida State, maybe Miami. So they're gone. Let's say the SEC takes those teams and the SEC and the Big Ten go and make a move and they go do their own thing. So ACC is left without an identifier. The SEC and the Big Ten start to part even more so. And now the Big Ten's looking at these schools at the bottom of their conference, and Syracuse and Pitt are looking at each other going, what should we do here in the ACC? And there's other schools, and BC is doing the same thing in the ACC. Could we see in some world in the not too distant future, within a decade maybe, a return of Big East football and actually having Northeast schools together?
Yeah, wouldn't that be amazing? Yeah. I mean, anything is possible. That's what we've learned with realignment. Anything is possible. We have USC in the damn Big Ten. Like, I mean, anything. UCLA's in that conference. Washington. Like, anything is possible. We've left the Pac-12 in the dust. It's, you know, like the Pac-East, Big Ten. I don't even know what you want to call the Big Ten anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe you could get your Big East back. I used to watch that 30 for 30, the Requiem for the Big East. That was always fun to watch. And you know, if with the money they can get kids to start staying in school because they got to take a pay cut to go to the L or the A, you know, that might be a way to do it, to get back to what those rivalries were, you know, and having the coaches choking each other and everything else that went on in those days of the Big East.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be fun?
And
you know, bring the Mafia back into it, fix the games up a little bit at Boston College, or, you know,
and
whatever it was. Yeah.
UConn is still independent in football, just to make note of that. So
UConn played well this year in football.
They did this year and last year.
Congrats to them.
As an independent, they're going to need a home. So, and people do ask me the question, okay, Dan, this realignment thing, you keep talking about Notre Dame going off with the SEC and the Big Ten. Well, that would imply that Notre Dame has to become part of a conference. Why would they do that? They have 100% of their revenue, so how could that work? Well, let me tell you something about this. I think Notre Dame, who's already found a way to weasel their way into a lot of things and work out some deals, to say to the ACC, we're going to come for every sport except for football, and we're going to share your revenue, and you're going to like it. And we're not going to give you a cent of our football money. And the ACC was like, okay. So in the case of Notre Dame becoming a Big Ten school, well, why would that happen, Dan? Well, I'll tell you. Notre Dame taking all of their sports out of the ACC and going into the Big Ten and then adding football into the Big Ten, well, why would they do that? What about revenue sharing? What about this, that, whatever? Well, if the Big Ten is to subtract some schools, if the Big Ten makes a deal with Notre Dame and says, keep doing your regular season the way you want to do it, I can see Notre Dame weaseling a way to keep the majority of the lion's share of their money with themselves. Joining the Big Ten, why would they join a conference? There's one way to get Notre Dame to join a conference. And in my opinion, there's only one way that would work. The College Football Playoff Committee calls up Notre Dame and says, we have looked at the bylaws of the College Football Playoff. We have made the decision that you cannot qualify for a college football playoff spot unless you are a member of a conference with an opportunity to play for a conference championship. Whether you make the conference championship or not, we value conferences, we value the conference championship, and we cannot guarantee you simply to have a spot if you win 11 to 12 games. So you can only qualify for the college football playoff if you are a member of a conference. That's the only way to get Notre Dame to do it. But I think if the SEC and the Big Ten, which are making billions individually, find a way to align together or partner up together, the only way to get Notre Dame to join a conference is to tell them that they can't qualify for a championship. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and I think if I was Notre Dame, I'd also want to keep my contract with the cock, as Pat McAfee calls it. You definitely want to have that NBC contract still and not be subject to conference television. You got to say, you know, we'll come, but we got to bring the cock.
Leave it up to Jay Bird to get that one in there. So before we jump out of here, we take a look at the NFL and the playoffs. The playoffs have been set. I made a prediction at the beginning. Well, I made 3 predictions at the beginning of the season. Jay Bird, you could tell me if I'm wrong. I made more than 3, but I made 3 quarterback predictions at the beginning of the season. And those quarterback predictions that I have made were Jaden Daniels would have the best season of all rookie quarterbacks this year, and I believe he did. The second best quarterback rookie season for the 2024 class, I predicted would be Bo Nix, which has led his team to the postseason. And my third prediction was that Tommy DeVito would start at least one game for the New York Giants. Am I right or am I wrong? Jaden Daniels best, Bo Nix second best for rookie quarterbacks this season, and Tommy DeVito, obviously that one's correct because he started.
That Jaden Daniels had him a little bit of a year there, didn't he? I feel like there were 2 guys that looked just like you and me talking last year before the draft saying Caleb Williams was not going to be the top tier of that draft.
Yeah.
And we said something from LSU. Yeah.
What about
the best one?
What about Bo Nix? Do you agree with my preseason prediction? Now, keep in mind, I predicted Bo Nix would be the second best quarterback of the rookies this season. This was weeks before I think it was months before he even was given the starting job. So I predicted this before they even named him a starter. Did he have the second best season for rookie quarterbacks?
I don't even think it's close, is it? Is it close?
I don't think it is.
Is it up for debate? Caleb, I think Caleb's going to take some time. And that's why I felt the way I felt about it last year. I felt like Caleb was more of a project. Jaden was ready to go. Bo was kind of he could have gone either way. I think he's in a good coaching situation there.
Yeah.
Even with his quarterback coach is taking head coaching interviews now. So I think, Bo definitely was number 2.
So predictions secured, all 3. The NFL playoffs, they're secured here. We know that in this new 7 on each side that has happened in recent history, the second seed does not have a bye. Only the first seed does. So the Chiefs, big surprise, will have a bye. Them and the refs will be able to sit out the first round of the AFC. And then in the NFC, Chiefs are a good team, but face it, folks, there's at least a couple games that they could have lost based on officiating at the end of the game. In the NFC, the Lions are first. I'm not surprised here. And then in the AFC, we have 2-7 Bills Broncos, 3-6 Ravens Steelers for the third time this year. And we have 4-5 Texans versus Chargers. In the NFC, we have 2-7 Eagles Packers. We have, which is the Battle of Forest Green. And then in 3-6, we have Buccaneers Commanders. And in 4-5, we have Rams Vikings. So, and this is the crazy thing about the NFL seeding, is that the Vikings, with as many victories as they have, because they didn't beat the Lions at the end of the season, the poor Minnesota Vikings, with 14 wins in 17 tries, have to play on the road as the 5th seed and go to Los Angeles. So let's start things off here on the AFC side, Jay Bird. Bills, Broncos, Ravens, Steelers, Texans, Chargers, Chiefs at the top. Thoughts on the AFC?
Man, I mean, how on the AFC do you ever bet against the Chiefs?
True.
They get to sit up this week, just kind of hang out and get ready for whoever it's going to be. Andy Reid's done an amazing job there. Who knows? Maybe Tyreek Hill will be there by the next week or so. Maybe the Dolphins will just release him and let him go to where he wants to go.
Yeah.
I don't know how you put money against the Chiefs, to be honest.
Fair.
I think they're just in the way that they find to win games.
Yeah.
With or without help. Okay.
Yeah.
They find ways to win games.
True.
However, if you're going to have a dark horse, okay, Josh Allen had an amazing year this year. If you're going to have a dark horse, it's got to be Buffalo, who is a Broncos. Well, next. So, I think we're going to get Bills Chiefs again.
Bills Chiefs for the AFC Championship. NFC side of things, Lions at the top. The rest of the field is there. A lot of good teams, a lot of strong teams, and 75% of the NFC North is in the postseason. The only team that's not, the team that had the number 1 overall pick, the Chicago Bears, who took Caleb Williams, the Lions, the Packers, and the Vikings. Oh my, does one of the NFC North make it to the Super Bowl, or are we talking about somebody else?
Man, I'm praying for Dan Campbell and the Lions. They're in my prayers because holy hell, they've had an amazing year. And last year they had a 10-point lead, I think it was, when he was refusing to kick field goals in San Francisco. They should have been there last year. Honest to goodness, they should have been there. I hope they get there this year. It looks like, they're probably going to have a rematch, probably with the Vikings. So I don't think the Rams can take the Vikings. That's kind of what I'm looking.
Looking at the Lions, looking at the Chiefs, The top teams being there in the end in Jaybird's thoughts. I've called the Lions a Super Bowl caliber team from the beginning of the season. I continue to feel that way. I want to see Lions-Vikings round 3, personally. And then in the AFC with the Chiefs, like you said, it's hard to go against them. What really upsets me and makes me very sad is that Bo Nix has to go up against the Bills in the first game. I would love to see Denver play somebody else, win that game, and not have to play Buffalo right out of the gate. Keep in mind, Denver's got a really good defense, and Buffalo has shown in the postseason that they struggle at home. They struggle at home in the snow. So we'll see what life looks like here. Both of these teams are used to cold weather. Both of these teams are used to the snow. The difference between the Bills and the Broncos defense, they'll make you play a game under 20 points. So we'll see what this is going to look like here. But if the Broncos can somehow squeak it, it blows the doors open. But I think looking at this from the onset, the Ravens and the Bills, I would have to say, I'm just sad that the Broncos have this game first because I'd love to see Bo Nix get a win in his rookie season. So
yeah, definitely a tough draw to go on the road to Buffalo. And, it's a tougher draw if you're the Miami Dolphins, but it's just a tough draw for the quality of team Buffalo was this year. And Josh Allen, the year that he's having, I just don't know if there's a way to stop him from taking over a game at this point. He's had an amazing season, and I think that Buffalo, like I said, is a dark horse. They could go into Kansas City and beat them. They're the only ones I think have a chance.
I wanna say Buffalo's got really good odds here, good opportunity, but I try to temper because I told the fans for the last 3 years they've been talking Super Bowl. Then all of a sudden this year people stopped really pushing, saying Buffalo's definitely going to get there. They're going to get there. They got to get there. They're the best team. Da 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 da. And I said once the pressure came off, they started to play better. I think Buffalo plays better when you count them out than when you count them in. So we'll see what this looks like here. That's a really good matchup in the first round, Bills and Broncos. I know Bills fans don't want to hear me say that, but Bo Nix is doing good things. The offense has been able to score points more often than in recent history, and that defense is a pain in the butt. Texans, Chargers, that's a toss-up game. It's kind of a pick-em game here. Shout out to Jim Harbaugh in the playoffs in his first season back in the NFL. So he went from playoff to playoff, college football playoff to the NFL playoffs. Ravens, Steelers, round 3, like I said, is going to be huge. The Commanders, I want to see the Commanders win this thing. I can't believe that they have fallen all the way to the 6th seed out of 7. They got to go on the road to Tampa. I have a lot of respect for Baker and his resurgence of his career. And at the same time, I want to see Washington get this win. If the Rams beat the Vikings, it'll be a travesty to sports. And the Eagles and the Packers, I mean, that's the game that we saw in Brazil at the start of the season on a Friday night. So we get to see that in the beginning of the season, and one of those teams will end the season for the other team. So that's kind of interesting that they play their first game and someone will play the last game of their season in that matchup. So with that being said, Mr. Lucas, we've gone UCF, Scott Frost, college football playoff, NFL. Any final note that you'd like to make this morning?
Say hello to your three-time Dan Tortora champion, baby. We brought it home with your boy, Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah.
Another LSU rookie success story.
Yeah, Jason, and we have put in so we ordered the last 2 years. Now we have to order this year. So when I see you, you will have a lot of hardware that will be making my suitcase very heavy. In the Wake Up Call Orlando Fantasy Football League, Mr. Lucas has won 3 titles. He beat me in the semifinals to get there. And so I wish we played in the Super Bowl together in the fantasy football world, but it's okay. That I'm happy that you won. Couldn't have gone to a better person. Very proud and happy for you. And just to let everybody know, Jason's team is emphatically called Y'all Suck, letting everybody else know that he's better, and he has been. So he's kind of like Terrell Owens right now. When Terrell would say...
Kind of like the Chiefs.
What'd you say?
Kind of like the Chiefs.
Yeah, so he's built a dynasty, 3 championships here. Jason Lucas getting the trophy for the Wake Up Call Orlando League. Congratulations on that. I figured we were going to talk about that, but I'm happy that you brought it up, and I'm happy that that was our silencer at the end of this broadcast. So, Mr. Lucas,
I had to get that in.
As always, I appreciate you. I miss you, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Love you, buddy. Be safe going to Texas.
All right, love you too. Talk to you soon.
All right, man.
Take care. That coming from Jason Lucas one more time here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. We are beyond our time again this morning, as we always typically do. So I want to thank you for tuning into the broadcast. Thank you for being here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Great Lakes Honda City studios. And many thanks to everyone who has been a part of the show over the years, over 5,000 guests that we've had on these broadcasts. And I cannot thank you enough to each and every single one of those that we have been able to welcome here as a guest on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora under Dan Tortora Broadcast Media and throughout the years as an independent contractor before that. Many thanks today to Dr. Linda LeMura, the LeMoyne College President. Her special will air again at noon Eastern Time as its own piece, and you can get that on Facebook and on YouTube, both .com/wakeupcalldt. And many thanks to sports and entertainment entrepreneur and fantastic person, Jason Lucas, who I consider a brother. I thank you for tuning in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on YouTube.com and Facebook.com, both /wakeupcalldt, and on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. Once the shows go live, they hop into the archive on Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, Player FM, Podbean, Podvine, Podchaser.com, Spotify, TuneIn, and YouTube. All you have to do is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. Make sure to subscribe and follow. It is free. Big time thanks to Brooklyn Pickle down in North Carolina in Southern Pines, North Carolina, 1788 Old Morganton Road. Go and see them today right down the road from Pinehurst Golf Courses. And a big time thanks to our incredible team of partners in Central and Upstate New York. Great Lakes Honda City, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pump, GG Cards and Brakes, Servomation, Ma and Pa's, the snack capital of the world, Avicoli's, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Mother's Cupboard, Chick-fil-A Cicero, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, Pizza Man, Brian's Landing, and of course we are the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Moyne College Dolphins. It is Fins Up every single month on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Find your Dolphins by coming to the show on Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, like today, where we feature our AD and DT and Dolphin Dive specials, student athletes, coaches, administration, future Dolphins, and alumni, all joining Wake Up Call. Over 3 years of content with our amazing Dolphins on the Heights at LeMoyne. Make sure you check them out by going to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and find our LeMoyne playlist. The Dolphins are also on wakeupcalldt.com's homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to LeMoyneDolphins.com, and as always, Fins Up. The Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse are exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Find your Bobcats every single month with men's and women's basketball, men's and women's soccer, and baseball, all joining us throughout the year on Wake Up Call, where sports meets life. The Bobcats are on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe and hit the notification bell. You can also find our playlist by looking up BSC Syracuse on our YouTube channel. You can also find the Bobcats by going to wakeupcalldt.com to the homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to syracuse.bscbobcats.com and go Bobcats. The Binghamton University Bearcats are exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Find your Bearcats every single Tuesday during Bearcat time, Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. You will find your Bearcats, student athletes, coaches, and administration all throughout the year of their many sports, and we appreciate the Bearcats for being with us here in their first year of our exclusive multimedia marketing partnership. Make sure that you go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and find our Binghamton playlist. The Bearcats are also on wakeupcalldt.com's homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to binghamtonbearcats.com and go Bearcats. With that being said, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, I want to thank you for tuning in once again from the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Stay safe, stay healthy, think of others, not just yourself. Be good to each other. Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, X at Call DT, Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT. As we always say here on Wake Up Call, God bless, no stress, do your best.